Hello and welcome everyone to the Break Time Podcast. Here we just kind of chill and talk about whatever interests us. We'll start somewhere and see where it takes us. I'm Ryan, and as always, I hate that I put that in the script, actually, because it seems like we can never get something lined up. We had one good week, and I'm kind of regretting putting that as always in the script now.
As always.
Because, as always, I'm joined by my two good friends.
You're bound by
this time around. This time around, it's Eric that is here and Jake that is not here, because Jake got a case of the Sniffles, really, really bad Sniffles. And it resulted in his absence. Or maybe he just can't, maybe he's just silent and invisible because of his Sniffles.
Okay, he's here in spirit.
Yeah, well, we're always here in spirit. That's how this show kind of works. When you're not here, we're like, Eric's still here. He lives on in our hearts for as long as he isn't here. And this week, Jake shall live on in our hearts until his Sniffles get better. I will also insist on referring to them as Sniffles as far as we ever refer to Jake having or being absent. It'll always be because of Sniffles.
Man,
anyway.
I know we started the podcast in like April, but man, April has not been a good month for me.
Really?
So
I guess it has, and you haven't been here.
for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I do have a slight continuation to what I talked about last week, where I had to change medication because my previous medication I was allergic to and had.
You were allergic to it and it gave you tendinitis.
I got tendinitis, so it's fine now. My tendons are fine. But now, I changed medicines. You can probably see where this is going. I'm also allergic to a new medicine.
Great. Okay. And did it give you any horrible side effects?
Not tendinitis, but I have a very bad rash all over my body. I am red.
Oh, God.
I am now red. Everywhere.
You're red.
I am red. It's so bad. It's so itchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pleasant. And the
This is all... Sorry, continue.
And the thing is, right, I started this new medication last Friday. So like 8 days ago. And only until yesterday that I found side effects for it. So it's like a delayed reaction, which I think is even worse than having like an initial reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why?
And so, the rash.
Why?
Well, like, sometimes it takes that long for side effects to appear. You can't expect, I'm going to take this and immediately break out. I mean, that kind of does happen, though. My sister has certain allergies in which that immediately happens, but sometimes it's not immediate. Sometimes you're like, I feel fine, and then suddenly, a day later, you find some bumps in a weird spot, and you're like, that's weird. Why is that there? And you're like, oh no, it's crawling up my entire arm. And now you're like, I wonder if it has anything to do with something that changed recently. And then, it turns out that you're allergic to you treated this new medication as well.
It just sucks. It overall just
I remember, this is to get rid of some bacteria that was causing some uncontrollable burping.
Yes, and I don't think the medications help. I'm still burping. So I took it for nothing, and I have a rash.
Well, maybe it needs a little bit of time to do its job. I don't know exactly what it's supposed to do. I'm surprised you're not just on antibiotics.
It is antibiotics.
But you're just allergic to this one too.
Yes. Why? Why?
I don't know. Because your body thinks it's a poison. It thinks it
thinks I'm gonna die.
It thinks that yes. Your body thinks that this is not okay to have in your body. Time to act out on it. That's what happens sometimes.
Man, it was fine for a week and it slowly went downhill. When I first saw it was yesterday afternoon. I was like, my leg's getting kind of itchy. So I went to lie down. So I was gonna take a nap anyways. I wake up and I'm still kind of itchy. And my first thought, it was like, it must be bugs, right? Even though my legs have a clear sign of there being way too many bug bites. Yeah, it's bugs. So
yeah, you got bitten by 50 bugs all at once.
I was like, there must be.
And it just so happened it just so happened to coincide with that time you took that antibiotic pill.
I'm like, yeah, it must be bugs, right? Surely it can't be my medication. A second
No,
time.
what you don't know is that there are actually 50 microscopic bugs in your medication, and they bit you from the inside. Actually, I shouldn't say that. That sounds like some kind of conspiracy. Because, people might actually think that that's what happens. It's not, but it'd be funny if, instead of antibiotics, your medication is just full of bugs.
Microscopic bugs to help you kill
Microscopic,
bacteria.
blood-sucking bugs. They're supposed to attack the bacteria from the inside. That's how.
Yeah,
that
blood-sucking bugs. What's that? What's that one medical practice that's super outdated?
Leeches?
No.
The leech
Okay.
ticks?
I was not thinking about that. I was thinking about bloodletting. Bloodletting?
Okay. Well, leech therapy is a type of bloodletting.
Close enough, right? Close enough.
They do the same thing. They take the blood that's in your body and put it outside your body.
I don't know. I feel like leeches seem a little more unclean than just like giving yourself a cut and letting some blood flow out. I think that's how they did it most of the time.
I don't think either of those are sanitary.
Well, you don't know where that bug's been.
You don't know where you're also exposing the inside of your body to the outside, which is unpredictable in what it contains.
Yeah, I'll just never go outside again.
You know that the misconception that like pee is sterile.
What?
Or it's not really. It is sterile. People no. It's you don't know this.
I've
You
never
know
heard
that
of
pee
this.
is sterile. Pee is sterile.
Huh.
It's a sterile liquid. However, the moment it goes outside your body and once it exits through your body, it's no longer sterile. It's dirty because it has to go through a place, and now it's somewhere else. It's not sterile anymore. It's not used. It's not like a clean thing anymore. But I thought you'd know about that, but I guess not.
No, I did not know about that. That's new knowledge.
Yeah,
to
there
me.
are some cultures in which they use urine to wash their hair.
What?
Yes.
Ah.
It kind of works. The only problem is that usually urine is where all of the waste products besides water go out. So essentially, you're washing things with what is essentially a human waste product. The various bits and pieces and gross stuff that is in your blood, gets filtered through your kidneys and it's deposited out of your body through your urine.
Wait,
where? That's how.
Wait, at what point in the process is it sterile then? When it's first made? When it's in your kidneys?
I'm not sure. I thought it was something like
because the waste has to
come in your body.
The waste has to come from somewhere, or it goes in from somewhere, or it has to wash out something, right? I thought that's how it works.
It is not sterile. According to this, it's not sterile. It's sterile because it has no living organisms. That is what is that the bottom line for sterile?
Is that what sterile means?
I guess, because that's what the internet says. It says that it's sterile because there are no living organisms in it. But that does not entail that it is clean.
Yeah, I thought sterile meant clean, because that's what doctors use.
There's still, well, actually, bacteria sounds like it would be considered an organism, though, is the thing.
Isn't it?
But, urine has bacteria. It's present in urine at low levels, albeit, but it's still there. Why the hell would it be sterile? I don't know why that's like a misconception that people think.
Are we getting the definition? Are we sure you're getting the definition of sterile correctly?
Well, okay. Well, it says that urine isn't sterile.
Define sterile. Not able to produce children or young?
No, that's a different type of sterile.
Free from bacteria or other living microorganisms. Totally clean.
Bacteria is an organism, therefore. Okay, it isn't sterile. There is bacteria in your urine. Urine is not sterile.
I'd imagine it isn't, just by hearing it.
Yeah.
But the medical field is so, wishy-washy with some of the terms they use.
Medicine isn't an exact science.
it's like their whole terminology is a little wishy-washy.
Yeah,
And all these
it's
names no one
sense.
remembers about different medications and infections and
Mhm.
bacteria and everything.
It's not exact science. Otherwise, you'd have medication that does the thing that you want it to do instead of it being all like, hey, here, let's just make it so you can't walk for a while. Let's just, swell up some of those good old tendons,
Ah, yeah.
or let's just give you a really, really bad rash. So, sometimes it doesn't work because you can't really predict what your patient will or will not be able to consume, ingest.
Yeah, that's why most...
Or what have you.
That's why usually when things happen, after you take stuff, they're like, oh, you're allergic, let's add it to the list.
Yeah, an allergy list. Because, they need to make sure that you don't ingest anything that is harmful to you.
Yeah, but usually they base it off of, or they initially base it off of your family history. Because if your family, if anyone in your family have showed symptoms when taking a certain medication, you're probably gonna have the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, my mom took both of the medications I was allergic to, I think. So it must be for my dad. Dang it, Dad.
Yeah, so I don't know how allergy genes are passed down. But, I guess it's the same way any other sort of traits are passed down, is the trait for peanut allergy, and...
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know if it's a dominant trait or a recessive trait.
Yeah, because like my dad has never taken any of these medications either, so... Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it's from him. It's probably from him. But we didn't know. It's unfortunate.
Maybe. I wouldn't know what that's like, because I have very little allergies. Both of my siblings have a bunch of them, but I'm completely fine. I'm a superhuman compared to them.
You're the perfect child, perfect body, perfect ride.
Yeah, I'm perfect child, perfect body. My mom got some really good prenatal vitamins when she was pregnant with me, so I became the strongest of the three of us. That's how it works, right?
Yes. Wasn't there a saying where if you eat vegetables as you're getting pregnant, you'll get a girl?
No, that's not how it works.
I know it's not how it works. I swear, I've heard people say that before.
Why would that determine which gender your baby is? And how do people come up with this stupid ass shit?
And if you want a boy, you have to eat a lot of meat.
That's so stupid. Honestly, I would categorize that as almost sexist. Because what is that supposed to say? Is that supposed to say that vegetables are inherently female? Are vegetables feminine? I don't think so. That's such a dumb thing to think. And meat is inherently masculine? That's also just as stupid.
I know, all these... It's a lot of, like tradition stuff. This is a lot of, like, traditional stuff, like, has not a lot of backing behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say.
Yeah, I can imagine. The thing is that people will be, the reason why you're a boy is because your mom ate a lot of steak when she was pregnant.
Yeah, all those steak. She only ate steak just because she wanted a boy.
That's how, and, in that case, if that's what happened, the baby would be kind of messed up because they got nothing but meat the entire time they were being, germinated. That's not the correct term. Why they were being grown inside another person. And it's just, you're missing key nutrients if all you're getting is stuff from meat. But now that I think about it, that's how a lot of carnivores get their nutrients, is they get the nutrients from the herbivorous animals that they eat, and they get the vegetable-like nutrients from those. Mm-hmm. So I'm not entirely sure why that isn't necessarily the case for us. I guess it's just that we need more of it, or it could be that we just don't process meat in the same way that other carnivorous animals do because we're omnivorous. Huh. Anyway, there is a couple topics that I wanted to talk about, and it had something to do with So recently, over the past week, I was so much into it that I finished all of Hajime no Ippo over the course of this past week, because I just loved it so much. Let's see. There's 75 in the first season. There's 26 in season 1 and season 2, and there's 2 movies.
Wait, so you watched all of them?
2 movies? Yeah, I watched it all.
Oh my goodness.
It was that good, dude. I really liked it.
Wait, so what do you like about it then?
Well, first of all, it's just an interesting view at boxing. It's more than just, oh man, look at these guys fight. It's all about the stuff leading up to the fights too. And all the characters are very nice characters. That's not a very good way to put it. They're all very, I don't know, relatable, but I just like all the characters. They're very likable characters, all of them, every single one of them. Ippo is a great protagonist, and I'm glad that sometimes the thing isn't solely focused on him. However, I wish that some characters got to win a bit more than they get to, and I wish a lot of more attention was put on characters that don't get as much attention. And, but still, overall, really good series. I loved all of the fights. I loved the way that it works. It's definitely got that. There's something about it that I really like, and it has to do with the fact that all of the techniques and the maneuvers and the various boxing things that they do are rooted in reality, rather than being, inane anime bullcrap, which I don't really like as much. I'd much rather it be rooted in reality and everything being able to reference itself back and having these are the effects that it actually has in reality, therefore these are the effects that it has in the show, as opposed to, say, I don't know, the other fighting anime. The one I keep thinking of is Baki, and I stopped watching Baki because I couldn't take it seriously, because at some point it just became that inane anime bullshit that I don't want from these anime where it's not supposed to be magic superpowers. It's supposed to be realistic fighting, and it's not, and so I just dropped it and I didn't like it.
Oh, the same thing happened to a series I was watching or reading. It was a webtoon called God of High School, and it actually got its own anime adaptation, even though it started off as a webtoon, which is honestly pretty impressive. A few other webtoons have gotten anime adaptations. Some I can think of Tower of God, and also I think Noblesse had a few episodes as well. But for
I've never heard of either of these, but yeah,
they're definitely worth watching or reading if you like reading webtoons. They're all vertical and all in full color. I do enjoy reading webtoons. I read a couple webtoons. Yeah. Yeah. So God of High School. It starts off as seems like your traditional martial arts fighting series, and it looks promising. It looks pretty promising at the beginning. But then it turns out the main character is actually the Monkey King.
No.
So then it ends up being where instead of it transitioning from martial arts into martial arts with superhuman powers. From powers they borrow from the gods. So then everything just becomes on the scale of ridiculousness, which I kind of did not like as it progressed, because it kept getting more ridiculous.
Yeah.
As the gods get more and more involved with the world, and they can borrow more and more of their power, so everyone just got more powerful.
That's another thing that I don't really like, is when divine intervention. I'm not a fan of that either. Because it takes away stuff that the character actually does, and it says, no, the reason why they won is because God was on their side, or something like that. As opposed to their own ingenuity, or this person did it. And for that reason, that's why I like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure so much, because God's got nothing to do with it. The reason the characters win in that show is because it's just humans fighting other humans, usually. Sometimes the human is fighting an orangutan, or a dog, or a bird, or sometimes there are no humans at all, it's just a dog versus a bird. Or sometimes you're fighting a street that has a stand somehow, or a person versus a rat. It's never about, hey, gods are getting in the way of this, it's usually, and it's only ever humans doing human stuff and humans beating other humans, or other animals or other organisms that somehow have stands, or sometimes streets. I don't know why that happened, but
Street
it
stand.
happens.
Street stand was pretty good.
Yeah. But that's what I like that. I like it when it's just the humans doing the human things. You can do things like, they get angry, they get more powerful because they're angry, but that's not because God got in the way and gave them power. I like the fact that JoJo's and other various series that I like are very much rooted in it's just humans versus other humans, and, other stuff don't got anything else to do with it. And it's just, you lost because this person was smarter than you. It's not because you lost because this person got god powers. Although sometimes it does happen. But it's not about, but that wasn't, I'm thinking about Jotaro versus Dio, and I don't think that had anything to do with God. That just had something to do with, it just so happens that Star Platinum and the World are the same type of stand.
So it's
which
the same type of stand as the world.
It is an ass pull, but hey, they didn't do the ass pull of God, okay? So it's different, and it's okay to a certain extent.
I feel like it happened. The same ass pull has happened in like every ending in JoJo, I feel like. Or most of them.
I'm forgetting the supernatural things of like part 4 though, because part 4 there was just that unexplained alley that if you look behind yourself, you just get dragged into wherever. But that's still not God. It's supernatural, but it's not God. It's not God intervening in the series. It's just something that happens.
That alley has to be based off of something. I feel like I remember a story, but I can't remember it.
I mean, it has the same kind of vibe as a small town urban legend,
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with like, oh yeah, like there's this killer or there was this murder a while back and this house is haunted, and the killer is still around, or if you listen real closely, you might hear the screams of people, or something like that. But let's see. There were two things that came to mind over the course of watching Hajime no Ippo, and one thing was the handling of characters speaking different languages in a anime series.
Oh, I'm interested about this.
Yes. Yeah. Because in Hajime no Ippo, the show is in Japanese. Everyone speaks Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get to some other examples in which I think they do it they execute it in a way better way than Hajime no Ippo in some cases. But in Hajime no Ippo, everyone speaks Japanese for the most part. There's some parts where people will speak English, but it's usually just like short bursts of it. Yeah, or what is it? Or Russian or whatever. There's like one Russian line in the entire series because there's one Russian character. But for the most part, everyone speaks Japanese, and the way they kind of like deal with it is that whenever you're supposed to understand a character, they're completely fluent in Japanese. But when it comes to actual conversations, if a foreign character has to have a conversation with a Japanese character, their speech becomes much more stilted, or it sounds more like they're not a native speaker of Japanese. But whenever you hear their thoughts, it's so clear. And I feel like sometimes when you don't understand like that nuance, that it's kind of hard to understand that, like, hey, at some parts, there's this character, he's one of my favorite characters, Alexander Volgzangiev. He is the Russian boxer.
Oh, yes.
He's a Russian boxer who is in Japan to get money for his sickly mom. And, that's his thing. And so, like, most of the time, when you're just hearing his thoughts in his head, or when you're supposed to understand a conversation between him and his trainer, who is also Russian, they're speaking fluent Japanese, but I think the implication is that they're speaking Russian, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, suddenly, when you go to another scene where Volg is lost at the train station because he can't read the signs well, he has to ask Ippo for help, and suddenly his speech is much more simplified because he doesn't actually... He knows some Japanese, but he's not completely fluent. And then there's like a part where where he's leaving to go back to Russia, and he says that he planned on staying longer, so he really worked hard in his Japanese. But I guess this will be the final thing I say in Japanese. He's saying this to Ippo, by the way, and he says like sayonara, and then he leaves. And it's very, very difficult to kind of get that nuance, but I think they did it okay. And that happens with every single character who doesn't know Japanese, is that suddenly, they have to speak Japanese so that, the audience can understand them, even though they most likely wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what was kind of weird about it, but I kind of get what they were going for.
Yeah.
And it's...
yeah, there's a lot of nuance I notice that occurs when there's like different nationalities getting involved in like anime, where it makes sense that some of them won't be able to understand Japanese, but most anime typically just have them speak fluent Japanese anyways. For the most part, I can think of a few that did it a little differently. The first one I think of is Black Lagoon. I know you know about this one.
Yeah, I watched Black Lagoon. I really enjoyed it. Everyone speaks Japanese.
Yeah, but like...
But also, wait, I watched the dub of Black Lagoon because there's some scenes in that make more sense because it's in English rather than in Japanese. But continue.
Yeah, I watched a Japanese sub for it, so I can talk for this side of the argument, is that the entire show was pretty much in Japanese, even though in Romanapur it's like filled with nationalities of a different bunch of people. There's Revi, who's from, is it London?
No, Revi's from New York.
New York, yeah, so she's American. We have
she's Chinese American.
Yeah, we have the Russian mafia. we have the Chinese, yeah, then we have The Rock from Japanese.
Yeah, The Rock, he's just Rock.
He's just Rock. I call
his
him
name is Rock.
The Rock. So like there's a bunch of mix of different nationalities here, but the entire show it's just spoken in Japanese. But I believe it's in the you could call this the second season, I think. It's in the second season where they end up going to Japan for something. Yeah. Where Revi was there too, but she doesn't know Japanese.
She doesn't.
So like she's speaking in the first season, she's speaking Japanese perfectly fine. Second season, she shouldn't know Japanese, but she should not know Japanese, but she still kind of talks like it's fine. But whenever there's like English involved, she does speak English. Like I believe there were some English people in the second season when they were in Japan, and Revi was speaking English, but it was like the kind of broken English since it's like a Japanese voice actor, so the English was still kind of broken. I'm
thinking about the give scene, where the one guy is like, he's trying to give up, so he's saying give, give, give. Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I do remember.
And then she's like, give me what? And then I think, does she just beat him up or shoot him? I don't remember what happens.
I think she beats him up.
Yeah, that scene didn't make any sense in English.
Yeah, she was not supposed to understand. I think the victim was speaking Japanese. Revi was obviously shouldn't know that, so she doesn't know what the guy is saying. Yeah, for the dub, that sounds. I feel like that scene was not
They messed up the line in the English dub, because in Japanese the guy is literally saying gibu gibu gibu, because in Japanese, by saying gibu, it means give up. It's supposed to be it's an import of give up into Japanese, and they just say give, because when you give up, you say I give, like gibu gibu gibu. But in English, in the English version of that, and in the Japanese version, that makes sense, because they're all like, he's saying give, but she doesn't understand, that's like a thing that Japanese people say when they want to give up. So she's like, give me what? And she's just walking closer, pointing the gun at him, while he's like surrendering, but she doesn't understand that, saying give in Japanese means that he's giving up. They messed that scene up in English, and I was pissed at it, because I knew exactly what it was supposed to be, and they completely botched it. Because now you have this guy speaking English and he's saying I give up, and then you see Revy being all like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What are you trying to give me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Shouldn't you understand what he's saying?
Yeah, in this scene in the sub, Revy was speaking English.
Yeah.
And the other guy was speaking Japanese, I believe.
Sometimes when it's in Black Lagoon, sometimes in the dub of Black Lagoon, sometimes they use the original Japanese dialogue for when characters are supposed to be speaking their native languages. And the other thing is that Rock, they had the English voice actor for Rock say lines in Japanese to speak when he was being when Balalaika needed him to translate to some Yakuza guys. I think they were Yakuza guys. So he was Balalaika's translator, and so they had the English voice actor speak lines in Japanese whenever he was trying to convey something to the people who were speaking Japanese. And they used the actual Japanese audio for the Yakuza guys in the English dub whenever there was supposed to be a sort of a where people weren't supposed to understand each other completely. Mm-hmm. And that was good. And for some reason, they just dropped the ball and gave the guy who was supposed to give up his own English voice actor, and now it doesn't make any sense anymore. They should have just kept the Japanese voice in so that it would make more sense. Because, if it's supposed to be from Revy's perspective, then Revy should not understand what he's saying, and she should sound like Japanese to her, and she can just speak English.
Yeah, it gets... I can imagine managing this thing gets a little annoying.
Yeah.
When making anime. The other anime I was thinking of that does like has some translating stuff, but they kind of just put it off to the side is in a show called Great Pretender, where
never heard of it.
It's like a con man anime. It's all about like conning people. Like the main character is from Japan, and he's getting like a con job in America, so he's flying over there. Like in the beginning of the anime, they're in Japan. They're speaking Japanese fine. He meets an Englishman. I think his name Leon. I think his name's Leon. And he's an Englishman, but he can also speak Japanese. How convenient! So then he invites him to come to America for a job. They go to America together. But the main character is Japanese, should not know English, right? But so then he does know English, but not very well. So then, when we're in America, they start speaking English the entire time. Everyone is speaking English, even between like the main characters. But it's all like broken English, because the voice actors are still Japanese.
Yeah.
Then at the point where I was starting to get annoyed with the broken English, there's like a huge warning sign, huge notice sign that appears on an anime for the sake that just says something along the lines of, for the sake of everyone from now on, just assume they're speaking English and they are just speaking Japanese.
Oh. If you're going to put a sign on there, I guess that makes sense.
There's like a huge sign. There's a huge
It breaks
sign.
the flow and it breaks the immersion when they say, hey, everyone's actually speaking English. Just pretend.
I thought that was kind of funny though, because if they kept on going with like the broken English, I would not have kept watching. So I'm kind of glad they did that.
Yeah, but
I thought it was kind of funny though.
I think there's a clever way to execute it, and it's definitely not that. It would be either to keep everyone speaking Japanese so the one that I think did it really well is Monster. Have you watched Monster?
I've not watched it, but I've read it.
Yeah, but there's like a scene in the anime for Monster in which there's an old British couple who are going to Germany to visit their son. I think their son died in Germany for one reason or another. I don't remember exactly. But during the course of the scene, it's just them two in the car, and they're speaking Japanese. However, the moment they come across Tenma, just walking on the side of the road because that's what he's been doing, he flags them down and they stop, and they're speaking to him in Japanese, but presumably they're speaking English because they're from Britain. Mm-hmm. But when Tenma greets them, he says "Guten Tag" because he's supposed to be speaking German. And so he actually speaks German in that scene in which he's not supposed to be understood by where the focal point kind of is currently. And then when they say that, the two characters who are speaking Japanese, who are supposed to be speaking English, say, "Oh, we don't know German. Can you speak English?" And then when he says that, Tenma starts speaking Japanese because now the conversation is actually in English. So I like this. It's kind of confusing, but I like this execution the most, because essentially what it is that you can establish at some point that they're speaking this language, and you can just say that they're speaking the language and it's fine. But the way you go about it is that you make it so that the people that you're supposed to understand are speaking the language that the audience is supposed to understand. Even if it is Japanese, it makes more sense to me, because it's like, okay, now characters are supposed to understand each other, rather than they're supposed to be speaking different languages, or they're supposed to be speaking another language, but we hear it as a different language so that we can understand it. It's more like you are supposed to understand what they're saying, so you have to understand it, so they'll speak the language that you understand. And I even though it's kind of weird, that's the one that I kind of like the most, because there are scenes in Hajime no Ippo where it doesn't really make sense why characters understand each other, because they shouldn't know enough Japanese to be able to get their ideas across. And then, in some instances, they just do for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, there's one boxer, one American boxer in that show. His name is Brian Hawk, and I do not understand why he does not seem like the kind of person who would even bother to learn another language other than English. But for some reason, he has entire lines where he's just speaking entire Japanese sentences, and the Japanese press, who are at this press conference because he's about to fight one of the main characters, the Japanese press can understand him because I guess he is speaking Japanese, even though he's American and he does not look like the guy who would even try to learn a lick of Japanese. And so it really feels weird. And so I'm just confused the entire time.
Yeah, I feel like maintaining consistency is a big part in solving a language barrier between characters.
Yeah. But it's things like that. And I'm trying to think of what would be a good way of going about that. You could do a thing where it turns out characters know multiple languages, and when they need to accommodate a certain character, they'll speak that language, but then when they're alone, they'll speak another language. That's kind of how American cinema works. Where, I don't know if maybe say that, some Japanese characters are a focal point. Or it's actually, no, this is a perfect way of thinking about it. Say that you have a Japanese American family or some Asian American family, let's say, a Chinese family. And so the kids, maybe the parents don't know English, right? Mm-hmm. And so whenever the kids are outside and they're talking to their schoolmates, or they're outside and they're talking to other people, they speak English because that's the thing that most people out there are comfortable with. But then when they go home, they speak Chinese with their parents because that's what their parents know. And that's how they talk to each other. And so you maintain that sort of air of realism, this is how it would kind of go, because you speak Chinese in the home, you speak English out in the world, because that's what more people are more likely to understand. And then you just subtitle the scenes where they're talking with their parents, and that works. Although some people don't like subtitles, I've also heard that, because that is a thing that happened, or that's a thing that people don't like subtitles, and so they just like it to be able to hear everything in English. But then there are some instances of entire conversations being in English where it doesn't make any sense why they'd be speaking English. Do you know the show Modern Family?
No, I've not heard of that.
Oh, well, I used to watch it, and I liked it, but... So there's a character in the show, her name is Gloria. She is originally from Colombia, but she moved after she married one of the other characters. I think he's the dad of a couple other characters, and she's kind of much younger, and he's older, and that's part of the Modern Family thing, is all of these various people of different backgrounds and different sort of walks of life, or maybe there's different ways that people interconnect or related to each other. There's they have one of the guy's kids is gay and he's married to his husband. Another one of his daughter is married to another guy, that kind of thing. And he's married to this younger Colombian woman, because I don't know what happened to his first wife. I don't remember what happened. Anyway, there's a point at which Gloria, who is from Colombia, her sister comes to... so Gloria's played by Sofia Vergara, and I don't really think that's a necessary detail. But anyway, Gloria has Gloria's sister, for some reason, comes to the States for some reason. And, of course, them being originally from Colombia, they have an accent when they talk. The part that gets really weird is when they speak to each other, either alone or when they're like in a heated conversation, or when you're alone with a person who speaks the original native language that you also speak. Wouldn't you usually go into that language if you're more comfortable expressing yourself in that other language?
Yeah, I guess that does make sense.
That doesn't happen.
Oh, no.
You'd expect them to start speaking Spanish. You'd expect them to start speaking Spanish when they're arguing with each other, or they're alone and they're just talking with each other. But no, they're just speaking really loud in they're speaking really loud in English with these, Colombian accents, which they are also playing up, because I'm pretty sure that I've heard Sofia Vergara talk outside of Modern Family. Her accent is not nearly as heavy as it is in that show. And then Stephanie Beatriz, who was playing her sister, also kind of played up the Colombian accent, because I've heard her in other shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and also in interviews, and she doesn't have an accent at all. So it feels really weird when you have these characters who are, just talking to each other, who are from another country that is not an English-speaking country, and they're just arguing with each other alone in English just so that the audience can see them or can understand them. And that feels just as bad. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? Suck it up, guys. Just read subtitles. Why does everyone need to... That's also kind of like just read subtitles. Let people speak the languages that they know. And, it'll be more authentic, and it'll feel better than everyone just speaking English. It's also, less of a, colonialist mindset where, you speak this language because you live in this country. But that's not how America works. Everyone comes from different backgrounds and everyone speaks different languages. They speak the languages that they're comfortable with. And sometimes, hey, maybe you don't want to speak English because you're not comfortable expressing yourself in that language. Maybe you're not the best at expressing yourself when you speak a language that is not the language that you know inherently. And so, yeah, it's not just a problem in anime. It's a problem in media everywhere. They all go with all these different executions, and I hate every single one of them. The ones at work are everyone speaks the language that the audience is supposed to understand, and then they'll just say that it's some other language from Monster. That's an okay one. Or just have everyone speak the language that they're supposed to speak.
And just add subtitles. Yes.
Yeah. It's so much easier.
It's so easy. And if you need characters to understand each other, just have a translator or something. Or
that's how it usually
or a character
works.
in the show who knows both languages and can translate.
Yeah. They did that for a while before Brian Hawk started talking in Hajime no Ippo, in which he actually was just fluent in Japanese for some reason. But there was a point at which a reporter who knew English was translating for him, and that was how they did it, until he started actually talking, in which it didn't make any sense anymore.
Oh, so he
and
does know
I get
Japanese.
their thoughts can be in Japanese. But yeah, suddenly he knows Japanese. What was the point of the translator then? So yeah, that's a thing that I'm very, very passionate about, because language is important. And I think also the other thing is that I'm a very big proprietor of everyone. First of all, representing people accurately has to do with what languages would they speak. Even it doesn't always have to be the Chinese character has to speak Chinese at some point, because that's one part of representation. But then you have people like me who hardly know any Chinese, and the Chinese that I do speak, I sound like a toddler, so I don't usually speak Chinese, I speak English, so I'm an Asian American who only speaks English, and that's okay too.
Hey,
but you need
same.
to set down these ground rules so that, like, it makes more sense. I like having various different languages being represented. I don't like that word for it, but just accommodating, having it in there is super cool because you get like a little bit of you get a little bit of that foreign spice. Oh, that felt awful. Why'd I say that?
Oh no.
I mean, like more like it just adds a little bit of spicy diversity. That also doesn't sound right. I don't know what I'm just it makes things more interesting when you can, when you can feature more language in your shows and things in various types of media and things like that, as opposed to everyone speaks English and only English because people need to understand them, which I don't really like because it just feels kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah, it's probably
So
also it's probably also ends up being a better representation of their character as well, as seeing how they interact with like people of different cultures.
Yeah, because that's like that is a thing. That is a thing because I definitely feel like when I speak Japanese, I take on a different kind of personality than when I speak in English, simply because that's just the way I kind of carry myself, or I carry my voice, or sort of act when I say things in Japanese versus English. It also has to do with a lot of like the voice acting that I do too. Some of the voice acting or the characters that I think of as well is that I can't manipulate my voice in the same way to get like a similar feel. When I do something in Japanese, it feels much different when I try to do that thing in English, and it feels like if I was to portray characters in Japanese versus English, I'd have to probably go for a different type of character depending on the different ones, because I speak Japanese a certain way, I speak English a certain way. I'm not sure if I can make the two meet and make like I'm not sure if I could do a cool. Sometimes I'm not very confident in my ability to portray a cool character in English sometimes, because I don't know if my English voice has the capability for that. Although I'm not sure. I might be able to. Who knows?
Try.
I don't know.
You should try it. See
It
how
might just
goes.
take some practice. Yeah, Takeru. We'll see. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, another thing that came up, and it's like a thing that I've definitely sort of, it's happened ever since I kind of started watching anime, but it's not even like limited to anime, but it's more like, what specific situations are there that you've like sort of seen in various media, and they just elicit a very strong emotional reaction in you? Something kind of idiosyncratic, where it's like you wouldn't it's kind of weird that that's the emotional response that you have. I'll give you an example. Maybe you can try to add, like, maybe you have one after I give you an example. One thing that gets me every single time it happens a lot in anime a lot of the shows that I've watched, is that I feel really bad and my heart kind of sinks and I'm on the verge of tears whenever someone loses their appetite in anime. Or some amount of food is lost in some way.
The food is gone. Well, like they didn't finish the food, or it got ruined somehow, some way.
If it got ruined, or someone's appetite got ruined because of whatever circumstances they're currently, witnessing in the conversation they're having, I hate it because it makes me feel so bad inside. I don't know why.
Wait, that's so weird.
Yeah, like the one that definitely stands out to me is, did you watch Angel Beats?
Oh yes, I have.
Okay, when Kaede lost her ticket to get the Mapo Tofu, I was on the verge of tears.
Oh no! Oh.
When she lost her ticket to get the Mapo Tofu, I was like, oh no, no.
Oh, that's so sad.
More recently, in Hajime no Ippo, there is a teacher who introduced one of the boxers. He's an antagonist for his arc in the series, so he introduced him to boxing, and they're kind of reconnecting, or they're getting to see where things are going by going into a diner, family restaurant most likely, and having some food. And the guy, he's just like, oh man, like, you really cleaned yourself up ever since you started boxing, right? And then, the boxer's having a steak, and his teacher is having a plate of what I can only assume is spaghetti Napolitan. Napolitan. Spaghetti Napolitan. And, suddenly his student, the guy, his name is Ryuhei Sawamura. He's a pretty whack guy. He starts saying a bunch of unsettling things because it turns out that, he realizes that, by introducing this guy to boxing, he's actually made him a monster, and now he's obsessed with tasting other people's meat by beating them up in fights. And that's why he boxes, is he literally does it to inflict pain on other people, and he's a sadist. And so he's mid-bite. He has some of the spaghetti on his fork, and then suddenly his smile turns to a frown, and then he puts the spaghetti down. And I'm like, no. Why? I got really mad at Ryuhei because he ruined this man's appetite. This good man who was just trying to do the right thing, and then suddenly he realizes that he probably did it wrong. And it just my heart sank when that bite of spaghetti did not get eaten. Like, honestly. It's just such a...
tragic.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing, and I don't know why, but I don't, maybe it has something to do with how I associate food or something like that. Actually, it's probably that exactly. Yeah, but anytime a bit of food is lost, or food is a missed opportunity for eating, or people losing their appetite in the middle of a scene, it just gets me. I don't know why. It's something that just immediately gets me, and I don't understand why it does. I honestly, I'm tearing up just remembering the Angel Beat scene. I'm tearing up remembering that teacher who thought he was doing good, and turns out that the student that he introduced to boxing, he essentially made a monster, and it made him unable to eat his spaghetti. And oh my god.
No, not the spaghetti.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you have any sort of thing like that, if you're watching something, if like a specific kind of situation that just sort of elicits an intense emotional reaction in you.
I can think of maybe just one particular scenes that usually get me is when someone forgets something. Usually it's worse if it's something important. And it's worse if it's like forced too, because I can go into this a little bit spoilers in Code Geass. I watched maybe like halfway through the first season.
I'm pretty sure, if anything, you're the person who would get the most spoiled by Code Geass if anyone started talking about Code Geass. Because that show is old.
It is old, and I haven't watched it yet. I just started and it's good. So the scene in question is. Shirley finds out that, oh god.
Lelouch is zero?
Yeah, Lulu is zero. Shirley finds Lulu is zero. I'm like, oh no, this is pretty bad. But then at the end of the episode, Lulu erases Shirley's memories, so Shirley doesn't know who Lulu anymore. And I was just devastated. It was just so sad when someone just forgets something that felt important to them, and then well, in the end, I think it did end up helping Shirley because she was kind of like emotionally torn at that point.
Yeah.
But it was just really sad to watch someone who really liked the main character stood up for him even though he was zero, but still was questionable about how she wanted to proceed. But then after she forgot about Zero, she was like super happy about it. Or like, not really happy, more like, it was bittersweet, but she seemed to be happier.
I'm pretty sure that would come under the category of blissful ignorance.
Yeah. So like, when people forget things, and if it's forced like through what Lulu did to Shirley, it messes me up. It's kind of like, I want to be remembered, right? Because Lulu's character, he's trying to keep it hidden. His whole persona is being Zero, and he's trying to act as like the kind of like how should I put it? Like, he is the center of attention right now, but not he. The center of attention is Zero, not Lulu.
He's leading a double life.
No.
He's like Hannah Montana from the Disney Channel. Do you remember Hannah Montana? Did you watch Hannah Montana?
I did not watch that.
Okay, well, it's about a teenage girl who just wants to be a normal girl, but she leads a double life as a pop star. It's kind of like that, except with normal, everyday Britannian student living in Japan for some reason. I mean, District 11, or whatever it's called. And, double life as a as a terrorist.
Uh-oh.
The leader of a terrorist organization. Yeah.
It's like associating the things he does, but not with the person himself. I think is a little hits me in a weird way. The same thing happens in Spy Expanded a little bit.
I have not watched a whole lot of Spy Family, but I'm definitely interested in it.
It's about one of the main characters.
I know
about the spy.
Yeah.
Everyone knows he's a spy. Lloyd Forger. That's his
Lloyd Forger.
Yeah. But the thing about him, he's a spy, so all the stuff he does has to be secreted and stuff. But all the heroic deeds he does, try to prevent the war between the two countries, goes unsung, never spoken about. It's all in the shadows, and he's never gonna be thanked or celebrated for it by the public. Right? And it's just kind of sad. He does all these things for his country to make it a better place, but no one knows him for it.
That feels like it's very much a thing that you want to be praised for something, huh? You want the world to know you exist. I get it, though. I want the world to know I exist.
Yeah, so it's just sad when people forget stuff, or when things they do are very known for what they do. They go unnoticed. Correlated to the person. Yeah, they go unnoticed. It's just sad. They all this cool stuff, but no one talks about it.
Yeah, it has a similar. The other thing that I kind of immediately am thinking about is I get very, very emotional when it comes to grandfather and father scenes. Or father and grandfather relationship scenes with grandchild and child. That's another one that really gets me sometimes.
Oh, old people too. Old people in shows, if they get hurt, I feel terrible.
I'm the one that kind of immediately reminds it of, because I watched it recently, was what is it? Sonobisku Doru wa Koil Suru? Sonobisku Doru wa Koil Suru.
My
Dress Up Darling. As whatever stupid title that's supposed to mean. I don't know why they changed it so much, but yeah. Gojo's grandpa. Him getting hurt, him falling over and having to be, taken to the hospital for which or whatever reason. Very much really hit me in a place that I'm emotional and vulnerable in, because I kind of really loved my grandpa.
Yeah, same. It's sad when I see old people get hurt. I think it hurts to watch. I think that's the point of them showing the scenes, but it hurts to watch still.
It does. Things like that. I'm getting emotional just thinking about people not being able to eat food. And grandparents.
Grandparents not being able to eat food.
No.
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 Grandparents being forgotten about. Grandparents that forgot to eat their food.
God, I wonder if we're triggering anyone else. Because right now, I'm kind of sweating, and I'm feeling really, really, really tense right now, because I'm thinking about grandparents being unable to eat.
Oh no.
And you're thinking about grandparents being forgotten, which is just also crazy terrible.
It's terrible. We're making ourselves sad. This is such a sad episode.
This is what should we title this episode's gonna be. We make ourselves sad. Our sad anime takes. Our anime triggers. Emotional anime triggers. We're just a couple. I don't know what else is there. I'm trying to think if I have anything else that just elicits an extreme emotional reaction in me. Food, grandparents.
Let me look at my anime list, see if I have anything.
It's like, okay, which one of these shows made me feel something?
Which one made me sad? Let me look real fast.
But okay, I guess on the other side of things, what kinds of things in anime or various media does not elicit any reaction at all? Like almost nothing. For me, it's weird, but it has to do with a certain type of character death. Where, sometimes when I'm thinking about like, sometimes when I don't think the character was fleshed out enough, I don't feel anything when the character is eventually killed off.
I mean,
because
that makes
if
sense.
I don't get an emotional connection to that character, then I don't really feel all that bad when they die.
I mean, it makes sense. You don't know much about them. You're not really connected to them. You're not attached to them in any way.
But the thing is that it happens with characters that I think a lot of people would have a reaction to, like Part 5 of JoJo's. I felt nothing when Narancia died.
That's kind of sudden. That's what I thought. So I was like, oh.
No, but even after they were doing the remembrance thing when they had Aerosmith fly over Fugo, that was the only time that I didn't even feel anything when Narancia actually died. I only felt bad for Fugo. I didn't feel bad that Narancia died. I didn't feel bad for Narancia. I felt bad for Fugo.
Oh yeah, by the way, JoJo Part 5 spoilers. A little late to mention that. For everyone listening.
Sorry. No, we're full of spoilers. You spoil like a little bit of Code Geass. I talked about Hajime no Ippo and various characters. Watch out for the scene where the teacher loses his appetite. It might elicit a strong emotional response.
Hajime no Ippo and also Code Geass spoilers, listeners.
The thing about Hajime no Ippo is I find myself rooting for characters, and it's kind of like a character death for a character that really, when it came to a lot of the characters in Hajime no Ippo, where I liked both people who were fighting, it felt really bittersweet when either one of them won, because then I started feeling bad for the other character because they didn't get to win. And of course that's the nature of boxing, unless it ends in a draw, once one person has to win, one person has to lose, but you can't help but feel bad for the character who lost. And I liked all the characters in Ippo, and I think they were fleshed out. I think they're really good characters. I felt bad when characters lost, but I didn't feel bad when Narancia died. I kind of felt bad when Abakio died, but I still didn't really feel anything.
Oh no.
I don't know. I don't think that Narancia and Abakio are all super fleshed out, I guess. I don't know.
I feel like one thing that I do notice now is I tend to get numb to a lot of things after I've seen it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Like in JoJo's, I've started to accept, because it's gone on for quite a while. I kind of get like the flow of it. Characters will die, sometimes unexpectedly, but they probably will die. So when they do die, it doesn't hit as hard. Okay, This is part 7 spoilers for JoJo. Where do you know it?
No, I don't. I haven't read it.
Okay, let's not talk about that. I'll talk about something else. Where, of other things that I usually get numb to, is when something in a character, like a character trope, like something related to their personality, just keeps happening over and over and over again, that it just gets kind of dull to the point of watching them.
Dull, cliche. Like, a tsundere hitting the guy they like.
Yeah, things like that. Like, how, even though it's, like, part of their character, I'd imagine that, like, eventually they'd, like, have some development over it, right? But...
No, of course not.
Like, I recently watched... This is different from, like, the whole tsundere stuff. It was... This was in Osama Ranking. The main character, Oji-sama, He's a king,
He's a prince?
but he's deaf. And for
deaf,
and for some reason he is a huge crybaby.
Mhm.
In like every single episode, he cries. It's not even funny. And, like the first couple episodes, he's crying. Oh, okay, I feel a little bad because he's deaf, he's a little weak. I felt bad, but then he keeps crying. It does get better, I think. It does improve somewhat because he does get stronger, but he still cries a lot. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I was like, am I supposed to feel bad? Am I supposed to feel happy? Is he progressing? I'm a little confused. He's still crying.
I'm pretty sure that has something to do with, I feel like Jake and I talked about this maybe 2 weeks ago. We were talking about the episodic nature of things, where things from previous versions from previous episodes don't carry over to subsequent episodes, and then it becomes really annoying because then it feels like the characters aren't learning anything, and they're not developing. They're just falling into their typical behaviors and tropes as opposed to actually developing as people.
Yeah, I can think of a few instances of that too, where or the same situation happens and the character does the same exact thing he did last time and it was not good.
Okay, juxtaposing Narancia and Abakio's death to every single main character death in Part 3, I felt really bad every single time a Part 3 character died. I really was sad. I was sad when Kakyoin died. I was sad when Avdol actually died. I was sad when Iggy died. But then, it was different, because I don't know, it felt like Avdol, Kakyoin, and Iggy were much more fleshed out as characters than Narancia and Abakio, in my opinion. And so I actually felt really bad when those characters died, as opposed to, oh no, suddenly Narancia, I didn't really care about him, and he kind of did feel very much, he felt kind of one-dimensional sometimes. And that's why I didn't really feel anything when Narancia died. I didn't really feel anything when Abakio died. It felt more like that Abakio was just doing his job rather than, oh no, look, it's so tragic, he's dying. The other thing that I thought about is that recently I discovered that there were this JoJo anthology album, which is a bunch of character songs done by the artists who did the openings for all of the various JoJo parts. So Coda did songs for I think there was definitely a Joseph one, because because Coda did the opening for Part 2. So there was a Joseph song, and they also did a Kakyoin one, but the Kakyoin one was more of a ballad or a dramatic song rather than being like a haha, look at how epic this character is. It felt more like a celebration of his life. And I felt really, really emotional. I was listening to Kakyoin's Goodbye Nostalgia song, because then I was just remembering that, for Kakyoin, his parents probably don't even know that he died. And harkening back to, not being remembered or being forgotten or things like that, I'm pretty sure that in the eyes of Kakyoin's parents, Kakyoin just ran away from home one day, and now he never returned because he ended up dying.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No, I never thought about it like that, but now I am.
Yeah, Kakyoin, because think about it. Kakyoin got a flesh bud put into his head by Dio, so he started acting differently, and so his parents probably thought that his change in behavior was their fault. He was becoming rebellious. Then the flesh bud is removed. He doesn't even go back home to his parents. He goes to the Kujo estate where they remove the flesh bud, and immediately after that they leave for Egypt.
Oh.
And so Kakyoin exhibited weird behavior at home, and then he just left one day, meaning that his parents probably think that it was their fault that he was acting up, and then he just left. And then they don't even know that he was possessed by Dio or anything. They don't even know that he died. He just went away from home to go help Jotaro's mom, and then died on the course of the journey. and his parents don't even know what happened to him. He's 17, dude.
Oh, it's just sad.
No. Yeah. And so I started feeling really, really bad about Kakyoin again, because that song, it was just about, like, how he was having so much fun on that trip, and, you know, he never saw, his parents never knew what was actually going on with him, and he just ends up dying.
Poor Kakyoin, he should have lived.
Yeah. I really like Kakyoin, okay? He's like my favorite character from Part 3. I really wish that he had survived. And see? That's what happens. As you know, I think about it, and like I feel like they tried to do something similar with, say, Narancia, where in the moments leading up to his death, he's like, I'm gonna go, once we're done with this, I'm gonna go back to school. But it didn't really hit the same way as Kakyoin, Kakyoin's parents literally don't know where he is. And I just felt so much more for Kakyoin than I did for Narancia. And that's why I like Kakyoin so much, I guess.
This reminds me of all the posts of people drawing what Kakyoin looks like if he was in Part 4.
Yeah, I remember seeing those, and I was like, God damn it, I wish that he was in Part 4! Because he's Jotaro's friend. I mean, they didn't really exactly know each other for long, but it definitely felt like they became best friends, right?
Yeah, I feel like the gang in Part 3 were more... They were a close-knit group. They were more closer together than everyone in Part 5.
That's actually a perfectly good explanation for it. In Part 3, it feels like Part 3 and Part 4, it feels like a close-knit group of friends who are just hanging out and also going on a trip together. In Part 5, it feels more like everyone's just work friends. Honestly. They're all just work friends, with the exception of, like, Fugo and Narancia, because it seems like they had more of a relationship with each other because they were closer in age. But everyone else, it very much felt like this was just a work relationship rather than them actually being friends.
Yeah, that's definitely what it felt like. So it makes their death feel like, oh no, they're
dead.
If
someone feels like your friend, of course you're gonna feel way more for them. This carries over into real life too. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but, you know, I have a friend who died, you know, like 4 years ago, and he was the same age as me, and it felt really bad.
Oh.
So yeah, it definitely carries over. When someone is your friend and they die, it feels much more tragic than, you know, just some guy that you don't feel like you knew all that well. Well, this is a really, really, really terrible note to leave on, and I guess we're kind of just stuck in this, because we can't really change this. I mean, we're kind of stuck here, and we're running out of time, and I don't know. I guess I could change. Let's change up the mood right now. You can watch and listen to us every Sunday live at twitch.tv/ShatterPointGames starting at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, maybe at some point. We haven't done that yet. One day. But if you can't make it, no worries. We're recording, so new episodes go up on Mondays at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on all your on all your favorite podcasting platforms, as well as on YouTube at youtube.com/BreakTimePodcast. Follow us on Twitter at ShatterPointGames if you want to see our fighting game development. We make games. We don't stream them. We're different, you see. We're built different. Join us next week when we talk about whatever. I don't even know who's going to be here next week at this point. I'm hoping Jake will be here. If so, Jake will be the next one to talk. Otherwise, it might be me. I might be alone. Who knows? It might just be Eric. At this point, I don't know who is going to be here. But until then, break time over.